All right, welcome back. Part three of the Who Do I Root For in College Basketball tier list. I won't go through all the tiers again. I did that in the last couple of videos, so if you didn't catch it, you can go through and read. You can probably make sense of it anyway. Um, I finished the last video talking about the three key teams around here, so Louisville, Kentucky, and Indiana. Gave a little history. The one thing I didn't really hit on, because I talked about it with some of the other programs, but Louisville and kind of their Patino era in the 2000s. So my time being in college, and I won't hit on it a ton, but like there's so many players that I love that were on the team, from the Reese Gaines of the world to Francisco Garcia, Taekwon Dean, Larry O'Bannon, Ellis Miles. Even before that, Luke Whitehead was fun to watch. I appreciated the effort those guys put in, to getting the program back to where it needed to go. It was an awesome run to the Final Four in 2005, which they just celebrated again. Juan Palacios, even though he got his eye raked, and had to get the goggles. But some really key teams there. And then over the years, they've just had so many fun players, even years that they failed to do much. But I appreciate them now. Sometimes they get frustrating as heck when you watch them. But the Preston Knowles, the Edgar Sosas, Jerry Smith, Earl Clark, one of my favorites of all time, David Paget, all those guys. And then they finally broke through and won it in 2013 with Peyton Siva, Luke Hancock, Russ Smith, Gorgie Zhang, Montrezl Harrell, Shane Bohannon, Wayne Blackshear, all those guys. They got it taken away for a party in a dorm that today would look like the most ridiculous thing to get it taken away from, and hopefully one day it gets reinstated. 99% of people still acknowledge that it happened, other than like a banner not being up, but they have some kind of banner up in the Yum Center. But having known colleges and college players, I can tell you what they actually did was very tame, compared to some of the things that I've heard. Anyway, so had a bit of a downtime, and I mentioned now they're on their way back. Hopefully, Rick Pitino has resurfaced with St. John's and done his thing. So I think everybody's finally getting through that whole mess, which took us quite a long time to get through. All right, now we'll get back started with the M's. So we've got Maine. I mentioned it before. I've got like a little cheat sheet over here that I will bring up. Maine, I don't really know a whole lot about. They never win because they are in the same conference, I believe, as Vermont, and Vermont seems to win it every year. They are in the American East. It's the Black Bears, so kind of a cool name. The bear looks gray. I don't know that I'd root for Maine. They're just kind of generic to me, so I'll put them in the indifferent, but probably wouldn't root for over some others. The Manhattan Jaspers. They are in Riverdale, New York, so close to New York City, not in Manhattan, crazily. But they are in the Metro Athletic Conference, Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, whatever order. Steve Masiello was there, who was a guy at Kentucky, a player, not a good player, but and then an assistant coach, famous for his run-in with Evan Barnwell at the Rick Pitino basketball camp, and cheating him out of the one-on-one competition. But Steve Masiello also is famous more recently for faking that he actually graduated, I think, and didn't have what was really on his resume. So maybe he ended up getting fired, and I think he's back at maybe St. John's with Rick Pitino. But anyway, the Jaspers, before all that, had one good team I remember growing up, because I remember I'm from Jasper, not where they're from, but the name stuck in my head. So Manhattan's a team I'd usually root for, just because of that. All right, Marist, the Red Foxes, Poughkeepsie, New York. Generic. Fox looks a little cartoony. Not my favorite. I've heard of them, but I'll have them down there. Marquette. Tricky one. Marquette is a rival, or was a rival, of Louisville. A lot of great games. I mean, and I know Dwayne Wade ended up becoming, Dwayne Wade, and winning with the Heat. And then legacy probably would have been a little bit better if it wouldn't have been dragged through the mud with LeBron James and that super team. But yeah, Dwayne Wade in college was awesome to watch, and he had his equal in Reese Gaines at Louisville. They had some awesome games against each other. And that carried forward. Like even after they were gone, Louisville had some really good games with them. They had Travis Diener, Steve Novak, Jimmy Butler, Jay Crowder, I think, was there. So a lot of good players came through Marquette and great battles with Louisville. They now have a pretty good team again. The coach escapes me, but he was the guy that was at Texas, and I should remember it because he's like always mentioned in coaching searches and stuff. It'll pop into my head later. But yeah, Marquette is a team I don't necessarily root against. Like, even though they were a rival of Louisville for a while, I don't hate them. And I'd be more likely to root for them. Dwayne Wade did have a huge win against Kentucky in a tournament, and they might have done other things, but that was what I remember around here. I believe he was the one that took him out one of the years, which was always, like, especially back in the day, a huge deal. Marshall, Thundering Herd, not all that far from here. They're in Huntington, West Virginia, Sun Belt. We are Marshall. Marshall, I don't really root for. I kind of am indifferent and not sure that I like them less. They famously, we had the We Are Marshall football team, and where a lot of their players died in a plane crash. I didn't reference this earlier, but like I've got the Evansville Aces shirt on long before my time. I think this might have been in the 70s or 80s. They had their whole team die in a plane crash one year, and I think there was maybe one person who was like supposed to be on the plane that didn't go because they were sick or something, and or left something, and didn't die. So yeah, that was tragic. Long time ago, before my time, but yeah, that happens. All right, this is Eastern Shore, Maryland Eastern Shore. The Hawks, they're in Princess Anne, Maryland. Kind of a dumb name to me, so I don't really like them. I don't really know anything about them. Haven't seen them do anything specifically. This team coming up soon did, so we'll give them a little bit more credit. Maryland, the Terrapins. Growing up, I don't really remember Maryland until Steve Francis. Steve Francis, Lonnie Baxter, Juan Dixon, Steve Blake. They won a title, beat IU in the title one year when Mike Davis was the coach there. Kirk Hastings, I think, was their best player that year to get them there. But Maryland is a team that I historically have not really rooted for. They had Gary Williams as their coach. Don't think there's a team that I really cared for that played for Maryland. And honestly, I'm going to put them in the usually root against. I usually root against the Terrapins for some reason. This will help me as I start bringing some of these down. All right, UMBC. UMBC is famous for winning the big game against Virginia as a 16 seed. First one to do it. So UMBC was like nobody thought they could win that game, and they ended up like killing Virginia. So no doubt about it, not a fluke. They are the Retrievers. They're in Baltimore, the American East, and so UMBC I'll always respect for that. I don't know much about the program other than that, but I would put them in the. I'd like them more to try to replicate that again. All right, we've got UMass. So UMass, growing up, was John Calipari, which helped have one of the greatest moments in college basketball when John Calipari was at his press conference and they were rivals with Temple, and John Chaney walked in, the famous coach, and said he was going to kill John Calipari. That sounded like he meant it. But that was very exciting. I remember that as a kid, and you just kind of wanted to watch it over and over again. It was great theater. But UMass had Marcus Camby. Why Marcus Camby went to UMass, most people know. But yeah, so they are not my favorite because of that. And I don't know that they've ever really recovered from it. Don't know who their coach or what's going on with the program, honestly. They're the Minutemen. They're in the A10. But I don't think they've done anything since. But I'd probably root against them, just from the history and everything. UMass Lowell, on the other hand, I'm assuming is in Lowell, Michigan, or Lowell, Michigan, Lowell, Massachusetts. And they might be, let me see if I can find them. They might be down. I don't know their, the Riverhawks. I was going to guess Hawks, but they're the Riverhawks. They're the American East, and I like their logo. And since I don't like UMass, I will put them in the team I'd root for more. Okay, back up to the M's. We did those. Is this them? Yeah. McNeese State Cowboys. I was thinking they were the Mustangs for some reason. But yeah, the McNeese State Cowboys, Southland Conference. That's down in Louisiana. They're in Lake Charles. They have Will Wade as the coach. He's the one who got in a lot of hot water at LSU and then ended up going to McNeese State. I think he's got a good team. They made it to the tournament last year and a good bit of NIL because some of the people at LSU really liked him and then supported him there because he's not all that far away. McNeese State is a team I'd probably be okay to root for. They're kind of fun. I like their logo. Memphis Tigers. It's customary for people around here to call them Memphis State because that's what they were back in the days of the rivalry between Louisville and Memphis. It's a rivalry that should be renewed, much like Louisville and Cincinnati. This is just a school they should play. Schools, both in urban areas, big cities that have good fan bases. So yeah, I'd like to see them play them again. Memphis growing up, I don't remember them too much other than like Anthony Hardaway being there at first, and then like until they got John Calipari, I don't remember them between then. I remember Louisville playing them, but it was just that conference. Everybody kind of felt like a rival, and so I didn't separate them out. But for the most part, like until they got some of the Calipari players in, and then I remember the finals that they made, and trying to remember who the players were on that team. They had Darrell Arthur sticks in my head. Jackson, some Jackson guy. Mario Chalmers I mentioned earlier, and from Kansas beat them, but I can't remember who Memphis's best players were. If it was like Chris Douglas Roberts, maybe was on that team. I feel like he maybe missed some key free throws, but Derrick Rose was probably the guy. I think he was the one that was there, and I just don't want to like misstate it, but I believe he was. So Rose and Douglas Roberts and Arthur and Jackson and those guys, Jackson might have been on, and Arthur might have been in Kansas. So it was the other big guys that were on Memphis, the ones that were like thugs back then that they couldn't even play basketball. I can picture them because they were like so bulky for both teams and just beating each other up. I'll think of it. But yeah, so Memphis I didn't really care for. Didn't root for them certainly then, and they choked that game off hard, and that was like a big downer for Memphis. They are not my favorite. I don't know that I root against them very hard anymore. So Anthony Hardaway's their coach. They're not in the same conference. They are in the AAC. Kind of feels like they need to be playing like in the Big 12 or something with, or the ACC or something with some other teams. But they really haven't been in that good of a situation since. So hopefully they'll start playing some competition in that regard. All right, Mercer, the Mercer Bears. They're in Georgia, but I don't know where. Macon. Okay, SoCon. I never liked their logo. Don't know much about them, so I'm just going to put them in the don't really care about. Then we get to a new team, I think. Make sure I'm getting this right. Merrimack. So Merrimack College is, I think that's the C. Merrimack are the Warriors. They kind of look like the Golden State Warriors colors. I haven't seen them at all. They're in North Andover, Massachusetts. I would have hoped they would have done more with their logo and stuff. And since they're a new team, I'll put them in the indifferent, but would like less. They're just not my favorite. All right, Miami Hurricanes. Jim Larinaga was there very recently, quit in the middle of the season, which sucks. But a lot of coaches are doing that with the NIL deal these days. They had a very good team a couple years ago, made it to the Final Four, I believe. And then with the NIL world blows up and rebuilds very quickly. And so Miami, historically, I never really thought much of their basketball. They obviously football school. But growing up with them, I don't remember them being any good or remember many of their players. They were just kind of out there. And so these days, I actually don't root against Miami. I'll say I more likely root for, and where I differentiate them a little bit, it's like Florida State. Like I root against Florida State, but Miami I don't root as much against. Again, the whole football, basketball thing. But even in football, I think I kind of have the same mentality there. Louisville's had some good games historically with Miami in both sports, but I don't hate them. I kind of like sometimes when they have their swagger and are pretty decent. So I can appreciate that. This is Miami, Ohio. So we have another Miami, but this is in Oxford, Ohio. The Red Hawks. The Red Hawks are in the MAC, and the Red Hawks are a team I really didn't care about. So yeah, I'd have them in the indifferent, but like less. I don't know any other players. I feel like there was maybe one player that I did know, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I don't think so. So, okay. Oh, Michigan. A lot of history with Michigan. Michigan, I grew up in the Fab Five era. Famous for making long shorts cool. I had baggy and one shorts myself around that time. Totally inconvenient for a sport like basketball. You're trying to dribble through your legs. Why the hell would you have long shorts? But it was a fashion statement. They had swagger. It was fun. They had, before that, they won the title. People sometimes forget Glenn Rice was there and they won a title. Then the Fab Five came a few years later, maybe not all that long later, and they were all freshmen. Super cool. Chris Webber, Jawan Howard, Jalen Rose, the ones people always forget. Jimmy King and Ray Jackson, I think were the five. So a couple of famous tournament runs. One, they lost, with Chris Webber accidentally calling the extra timeout, which everybody's like, I can't believe you did that. It's like, guys, in the heat of battle, sometimes you just, if the coach didn't tell you, you forget and you're panicking and you're a freshman or a sophomore or something. Maybe he was even a junior. I don't know. But it's like, that one play shouldn't cost you the whole thing. And I don't even think, I think they were down. So it's like you got a technical and it just cost them to be down like 3 instead of 1 or something. But anyway, so they lost that one. They lost another one. But the team is exciting and they were fun. And then long period where I don't really remember too much about Michigan. They've had, I think the Wagner brothers in the NBA played there. But the one team I do remember was the team Louisville beat in the 2013 championship game, which that team had a lot of talent. And I liked that team. I thought that team was fun to watch. They were like Trey Burke. I think Karis LeVert was on that team. Nick Stauskas. The one dude flamed out that was supposed to be pretty good. The big burly white power forward. I can't remember his name now. But they had a lot of Glenn Robinson III was on that. Tim Hardaway Jr. And then, the guy that I can't remember that got drafted by the Thunder and then I think had drug issues and flamed out. But probably wasn't athletic enough either. So anyway, that was a super exciting team. The small section of the fan base that was around me was kind of annoying, but I won't hold that against the whole school. They have Dusty May now, who will be interesting to see because IU's getting ready to fire their coach, and he's an IU guy. We'll see if he stays more than a year. But they seem to be doing all right. Michigan in basketball is a team I kind of root for more than others. They're not like I usually root for, but compared to some of the other teams, I don't hate them. And I'm sure some people absolutely hate them. Now, Michigan State, on the other hand, Tom Izzo. I respect Michigan State a lot. They've had a lot of like good success. They did finally get a tournament win. I think they were the last Big Ten team to win it, or at least team to win it while in the Big Ten. They might have absorbed, UCLA and some other things now, so they can say they won in the last 20 years, but maybe 25 now. I think they won in 2000. Mateen Cleaves, Mo Peterson come to mind. That team I didn't hate. They've had other, Draymond over the years. Louisville played them at some point to make it to, was it the Elite Eight or Final Four or something? Might have been Final Four. But yeah, I think it was Elite Eight. But Draymond Green, somebody else was on that team that I didn't like. Escaping my name, their name's escaping me right now. But they've always kind of had a few players that just I didn't like, but they just play hard and they play mean sometimes, and they're like ugly to watch. I'm not a huge Spartan fan. I'll usually root against them. But again, I can appreciate them, even though I don't like them. Middle Tennessee State, the Blue Raiders, Conference USA, Murfreesboro. I like Middle Tennessee, the Blue Raiders. They've been in the tournament a couple times, and I've usually rooted for them. So I'll have them in the indifferent. I don't pay attention to them otherwise, but if they win their tournament, I will root for them. And I should have said, like, I think most people know it, but like Michigan is in Ann Arbor, Michigan State's in East Lansing. I don't know my Michigan geography all that well to know how far apart they are. All right, Milwaukee, the Panthers, Horizon League. Bruce Pearl was there for a bit. Other than that, I don't know anything about him. Panthers I'd probably root for, though, because I remember him being there. I like the way they played, so I'd say I like him more. Minnesota, Golden Gophers. There is a coach that was there when I was growing up that I wouldn't remember his name, but that was kind of the thing with the Big Ten, especially. There were a lot of coaches that just, it seemed like they had been there forever. And they were all like pretty good, if not great. And Minnesota was always kind of a spoiler, not great team from what I recall. And then they haven't been good for the most part. Richard Pitino was there for a bit. I think they were fairly competitive, made the tournament. And, I think they beat Louisville one year when Louisville's like in the middle of chaos again. But yeah, Minnesota's a team I never really rooted for. They're kind of like Illinois to me. Yeah, I'd have them down there. All right, Ole Miss. Ole Miss Running Rebels are in Oxford, I believe. Is that right? Maybe they're under Ole Miss. Let me see in here. Yep, they are. Ole Miss. I guess that's their official name. Oxford, Mississippi's right. The Rebels. Don't really think of them much as a basketball school for sure. I do like sometimes they got the blue unis. They're a hard fighting team. I've watched them kick Louisville's butt this year and appreciate that. They had that coach that got in trouble for domestic violence, Chris Beard, but I don't know enough to judge that. So I'll just say Ole Miss I'd have, and more likely to root for out of the SEC schools just to create some differentiation of those. Might move them around, but we'll see. Mississippi State. So Mississippi State is one team that I remember one team from. So they're in Starksville, Mississippi. They are the Bulldogs. I maybe remember two things about them. One is their Final Four team, Dante Jones and Eric Dampier. Two names that come to mind. And I remember Eric Dampier just because he was huge. And then I remember Dante Jones because I thought that dude's going to be good, like even in the pros. And he got hurt, and I don't think he ever panned out. Now, maybe he wouldn't have made it anyway, but I feel like he blew his knee out late, and that's a shame. So Mississippi State, though, otherwise is kind of just a team I never really pay attention to or care about. The only other time I might remember, I swear, maybe when Louisville was like in the NIT one year, when we kind of knew we were going to not be in the tournament. the whole year, and it's like, oh, we made it, and it was Freedom Hall was like rocking. I think we played Mississippi State and like laid it on them to go to New York. So hey, whatever. It's the journey, not the destination. But Mississippi State's a team I probably wouldn't really care about. I'm going to put them in kind of indifferent. I don't pay too much attention to them. I might move them. I'm trying not to keep too many of the big schools in that section, so we'll see. All right. So Mississippi Valley State probably is next. The Delta Devils, yeah. The SWAC. So the Delta Devils have a cool logo. Got to give them credit. They went out there and didn't just call themselves the Devils or anything. And I don't know if the Delta Devils is actually a local lore or something, but they are in Itta Bena, Mississippi, wherever that is. I don't know if it's close to New Orleans, maybe. But I can respect their logo. I'll put them up there in the Route 4. Missouri Tigers. Kim English, their coach, or maybe was for a bit and maybe left. I remember him a few years ago. Missouri was always a just nondescript team. I think they were more like in the Big 12. What was the Big 12 growing up, and then eventually became the SEC. So they played more of the Kansas or more of the Kansas, Oklahoma, that type of team is what I remember. And then when they got to the SEC, I think they were just mediocre. They've probably had some decent teams since then, but they're kind of forgettable for me. But when I do think about them, I'd probably root for them. I don't mind those teams like that they've had. They're kind of like Mississippi State, but in this indifferent category. So I'll throw them up here. I take that back. I'd like having them around Ole Miss. So let's do that for now. Whoa, who the hell is this? Oh, Missouri, Kansas City. So UMKC. UMKC is probably down in the U's. I don't think they go by Kansas City. Let me see. Yeah, UMKC. Kangaroos. Wasn't sure if they were going to be like the fighting kangaroos or boxing kangaroos or something. So they're the Kangaroos. Kansas City, Missouri. Summit League. They have a cool logo. I want to say one of Louisville's favorite players, Andre McGee, went there. He's the one who got him in trouble in the scandal and cost them the title. Or at least it feels like he was maybe there when the whole thing broke. But that being said, I won't hold that against them. I do like their logo. I'd probably root for them today with the Kangaroos. Okay, Missouri State. You can tell by the logo. I got to scroll back up here. Missouri State Spartan. No, not Spartans. Missouri State Bears. Springfield, Missouri, MVC. Usually root against. That's a team that Evansville played, and maybe that's the team I was thinking Louisville played in the tournament. Maybe they played them both. But I do remember Louisville playing Missouri State at some point. They had a player growing up, and I do know them because they played Evansville. Kevin Alt, I think was his name, that might have gone there. And a reason I remember him is he was in competition with Michael Lewis, who I mentioned went to IU for Mr. Basketball. I don't know that either got it. It might have been AJ Guyton. No, the guy that went to Purdue. There was another guy. But anyway, Missouri State I never liked kind of because of that. And then Neil Reed ended up transferring there too, who was the dude who got choked by Bob Knight at IU. So only things I remember about them, but I usually root against them just because they are rivals of the Aces, Evansville. All right, Monmouth Hawks. It's funny how things randomly pop in your head for no reason. So I mentioned Memphis earlier and not remembering who their bigs were and got them confused with Kansas guys. Dozier is one for Memphis. Just popped in my head. Monmouth. So Monmouth is, they're the Hawks, West Long Branch, New Jersey. Colonial Athletic. I feel like they had 1 year where they were kind of fun to watch. I remember seeing them like in the tournament, and I did like them, so I'm going to put them up in the indifferent, but would like more. Style of play was fun. Probably have a totally different team and coach and everything now, but I can appreciate when they had good style or not afraid to play hard when the tournament comes and not play scared. The Montana Grizzlies, Missoula, Montana, the Big Sky. The next one we have is Montana State, the Fighting Bobcats in Bozeman, Montana. So usually when I have a state with two schools, I will pick one over the other in terms of who I would root for. I'll say the I like Grizzlies, so I'll put the Grizzlies up here to start. And I don't know, like, I guess Bobcats are up in Montana. It seems generic. There's a lot of cool animals. You'd think they'd have cooler ones. They've already got Grizzlies. Use like a moose or something. Bobcats we will put there. Both actually in the same conference. I don't know that you always see that, but yeah, they're both in the Big Sky. All right, Morehead State. So Morehead State upset Louisville in one of the tournaments where Louisville team wasn't very good, honestly, and then their best player got hurt, but they weren't playing well anyway. And Kenneth Reed was best player on the floor, and I think people figured that out after that game and when he went to the NBA. Morehead State, though, I don't hold that against them. I'd root for them because they're in Kentucky. I know enough about them where I'd say I'd more likely root for. I don't mind them. So Morehead State is in Morehead, Kentucky. They're the OVC. They're the Eagles. All right, Morgan State Bears. That's in Baltimore. They're the MEAC. Weird looking logo. Not my favorite. Don't know much about them. I'll put them in the indifferent vote. Would like less than the others. I want to say this is Mount St. Mary's. I guess they go. Okay. This might just say the Mounties, the Mountaineers. I don't know. This is not really the full logo. It doesn't look like, but they are the Mount St. Mary's Mountaineers. They're in Emmitsburg, Maryland, which I would guess is a little more toward the Appalachian part of, close to West Virginia, maybe, since they have mountains. Mount St. Mary's, I could root for Mount St. Mary's. I like the Mountaineers. Again, they've been decent before. I've seen them come out of the Metro Athletic Conference, Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, and that might even be the right thing. It's just the MAAC, and I think that's what it means. Murray State Racers, another Kentucky team. They are from the western side of the state in Paducah. They're in the MVC now. They used to not be. I think they were in the OVC, and now they're in that Missouri Valley, which is good. I like that. So Murray State's team I'd root for as well. I'm going to have them up in the more likely to root for. I don't know that it's a team I usually root for. John Morant went there and was very good while he was there. And then when he's not pulling a gun on people, he's pretty good in the NBA. All right. Navy, midshipmen. Annapolis, Maryland, the Patriot League. Don't really think much about Navy basketball at all, but they did have David Robinson, who was dominant in college, very good pro, finally got over the hump and won a title with Tim Duncan's help. But yeah, so Navy I'm indifferent about, but I could root for Navy more than not. Omaha, I think. Is this Nebraska, Omaha? Is that maybe what they're going by? Just says Omaha on this, but maybe that's, I just want to make sure I'm not like missing, I'm doing it wrong. But the Omaha Mavericks, it looks like their logo. Summit League, I don't really think about Omaha at all, and I'm kind of indifferent about them, but I don't think I like it. It's like a Trailblazers kind of logo, but just the O. Then we have Nebraska, the Cornhuskers, who historically have not been very relevant from what I can think of. Growing up, again, this is another team that I think was more of the Big 12 type basketball, not Big 10. Got moved to the Big 10, and they probably suffered for it because they moved because of basketball, and then just probably flounder around toward the middle or bottom of the Big 10. But they're a team I don't really root for. I've kind of root against Nebraska most of the time. Maybe not as much as some of these others, but we'll see as we go forward. Nevada. Nevada is in Nevada, Reno. Wolfpack. The only team I really remember with Nevada were the Martin twins that went to the NBA. So they, Caleb and Cody. I think they went to like the Heat and the Hornets, or they were both on the Hornets, and then one left, and now they're traded all over the league, I'm sure. But that team was pretty fun. I think Eric Musselman was their coach, who ended up at Arkansas. I liked it. I'd root for him. So I'll have him up in the more likely to root for category. I know none of those people are there anymore, but association. UNLV Running Rebels, fun team to talk about. Jerry Tarkanian. Used to chew on the towel. Remember them a lot from growing up. They were dominant. That's the first team I remember hearing about where I'm like, that team is impossible to beat. It's impossible. They lost to Duke. That was Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley and those guys. But Larry Johnson was amazing. Greg Anthony was great. Stacey Ogman was great. That team was super fun to watch. I don't know that I rooted for them, but I appreciated how good they were. I definitely rooted for them over Duke. And then UNLV today, I don't know a whole lot about, though. They did have that one player that flamed out in the NBA, Anthony Bennett, who's like a number one pick and like never played. That draft was awful, but it's really all I remember about UNLV. There's one other player that I'm forgetting that played there. Maybe it's J.R. Ryder. Did he play there? They had one team that was kind of fun with like one of those guys who was just like super explosive athlete. They might have had more, but I could root for them just because of their history. And I know that's another team that like had to do illegal stuff to get those players there. So I'm sure it's not super clean, but whatever. Everything goes now. Okay, so that was Nevada, Las Vegas. Make sure with these. Niagara, nope. Not Niagara, still not there. New Hampshire Wildcats. So dumb logo, dumb Durham, New Hampshire, American East, but kind of dumb logo. Not my favorite colors. Indifferent about them. Again, that's the same conference I think that Vermont comes out of every year. So not super relevant in terms of winning. Somewhat newer team, or I remember when they came around because I'm like, what the hell is that? Is NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. The Highlanders. Cooler logo than I would have thought. Cooler mascot than I would have thought. They're in Newark, New Jersey. Going into this, I would have said I probably wouldn't root for them, but after seeing their logo, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty sweet. All right, New Mexico. The Lobos and the Aggies I often get mixed up. So New Mexico State. Because I kind of forget who plays where and does what. I think New Mexico plays at the Pit, which is where Louisville won to beat West Virginia to go to the Final Four in 2005. I think Richard Pitino's maybe coaching there right now. This is why I know them. And I've remembered a few teams of theirs, I believe, and not New Mexico State over the years. I don't know that it's a team I'd really pay attention to or know much about. I'd say I'm pretty indifferent, but I'd root for them more and maybe New Mexico State less. Just close the book on that. New Mexico is in Albuquerque. New Mexico State is in Las Cruces, New Mexico. New Mexico, they're not in the same conference. Mountain West for New Mexico State is actually in Conference USA, so a little bit farther to travel. New Orleans, the Privateers, Southland Conference. Don't remember them ever making the tournament or anything. Not that bad of a logo and team. I think I could root for them. It's like, oh, your first time in, second time. Niagara. Yeah, this is the Purple Eagles. So Niagara Purple Eagles, they are in Niagara Falls. MAC, MAC. Niagara, I think I could root for. I like that conference sometimes. They have some good teams. And they're one of the teams that I probably root for more than the others. All right. Nicholls State Colonels, Thibodaux, Louisiana, Southland Conference, lame logo. I'm going to put them and then like less. Norfolk State, the Spartans, cool mascot. They're in the MEAC, Norfolk, Virginia, obviously. Don't like the logo, though. It's kind of weird looking. Maybe they have a better one, but we'll start them there, and we'll have to sort all this out. North Alabama. North Alabama are the Lions. They're in Florence, Alabama, the Atlantic Sun. Kind of generic, a little indifferent on them as well. Don't know them. We'll put them in that category, the like less. Tar Heels of North Carolina. A lot of history there. Michael Jordan went to North Carolina. James Worthy was at North Carolina. Sam Perkins, I think, was at North Carolina. All that before my time, really. The first North Carolina team I remember, and I don't know who, I'm going to get players totally mixed up on which teams they were on. Eric Montross, who passed away recently, sadly. He is one of them that I remember being early on. These guys might have been a little bit later, but the Vince Carters, Rasheed Wallace, Jerry Stackhouse. I'm missing one that's like, was their point guard. And I feel like I've got his name, but it's not right. Shammond Williams, I think is right. So that's the team I kind of remember from early on. Anton Jameson is another one that I totally forgot about. But like, it's hard to explain to people how awesome it was to watch like Vince Carter and Jerry Stackhouse in college. Those guys, it just feels like some of those guys, and I like a Darrell Griffith at Louisville was before my time and all that. But like, if I try to watch today, I'm like, where are those guys? The guys that are just like mean dunkers, and I mean Rasheed Wallace too. Those guys just were dominant. Now I don't know that they won it except 1 year. So like Anton Jameson, I know won it. So I can't remember who was exactly on that team. Like if Vince Carter was on that team. And it's tough because they won it a couple times. They had the Sean May year that they won it, and there's probably like way better players that were on the teams that I forget, but like Raymond Felton, Ty Law, so a lot of good players over the years. Then they've had some more success more recently with they had Roy Williams for years, and now they're with Hubert Davis. But then I don't know. Dean Smith was kind of maybe early on when I was young, still watching, and then Roy Williams didn't feel all that later. He was at Kansas and then moved over. So yeah, that's kind of the memories of North Carolina. And then they've had some good teams recently. They made the finals with the team a couple years ago that somehow has flamed out since, but like RJ Davis was on that team, and the big dude in the middle that was there for 45 years. That escapes my mind now. But North Carolina, I like North Carolina more than some of these teams. I'd probably be more likely to root for them. They're in the ACC. They play Louisville a lot now, but I like for North Carolina to be good. I'm anti-Duke, pro-North Carolina in that rivalry. So Hubert Davis played there, so that's why he's coaching there. I remember him shooting threes when he was young. Believe playing there. So cool players. Brad Daugherty, I think, was there early on, like before I was like growing up to watch college, because he ended up with the Cavaliers. So yeah, a lot of history there with North Carolina. All right, North Carolina A&T. We'll try to get through the ends at least for this video, if not farther. But so North Carolina A&T, the Aggies are in Greensboro. North Carolina's in Chapel Hill. So many schools like in a very close place around there, the triangle or whatever they call it, and then not all that far you've got some of the other teams. So North Carolina A&T, the Colonial Athletic in Greensboro. I don't know much about them. Their logo is pretty generic, so I'm just going to throw them in the don't really care and probably not root for so much. And then we have, no, this is not the Eagles. So let's see. Okay, this is no. Again, a little out of order. I'm going to have to figure out who that is. So North Dakota is the Fighting Hawks, and then North Dakota State are the Bison. So there's North Dakota and there's North Dakota State. So maybe they have them under UNCs. Like UNC, I'm thinking this might be UNC Asheville. Yeah, there we go. So UNC Asheville are the Bulldogs in Asheville, North Carolina. I like Asheville. Got a lot of damage with the hurricane. It's fun to go to. So I'd root for Asheville. I don't pay attention to them. Then we have UNC. Let's see, the Eagles. Do we have an Eagles? I may have to go back up. Let's see who these are. Okay, UNC Greensboro. Yeah, this is the Spartans. SoCon, they are in Greensboro, North Carolina as well. Decent logo. I could root for that. So I'll put that up there. We'll just go ahead and do, while I'm down here with the UNCs, the UNC Wilmington Seahawks in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I like Wilmington, so I'm going to put the Seahawks up there too. I don't mind those UNC affiliate schools. NC State Wolfpack. A lot of history there. You had Jim Valvano. They won the famous tip-in at the buzzer upset of Houston team that was awesome. But yeah, so NC State had that, and then NC State has been, pretty good for many years, but is always not quite as good as the Dukes and North Carolinas. They had a great run last year with some fun players to watch, which is outside of the norm to me for NC State. Their coach is Kevin Keats, who used to be an assistant at Louisville. But that said, NC State's a team that I probably usually root against. I did like their team last year. I mean, it's the one guy, I can't even remember his name now, the bigger guy that was fun. So maybe I'll give him a little bit more credit for that, but that's kind of where they're at. All right, I'm going to go back up to the ends and see if I can track down who the Eagles are. So we've got the North Carolina, there they are, the North Carolina Central Eagles. Durham, so along with Duke. I don't like Durham. I don't like Duke. I put them in the indifferent, but would root against more so. All right, now is the North Dakota schools. So these two are both in the Summit League. One's the Fighting Hawks, North Dakota. They're in Grand Forks, and then North Dakota State they're the Bison in Fargo. Famous movie. Fargo, North Dakota. Okay, of the two, North Dakota, I usually don't root for. North Dakota State, I'll put in the indifferent because I don't really follow them, but I do know the Bison more for their football, like D2 football. But they've been in the tournament before. I've seen them. I know them. So they're fine to be there. Okay, Northeastern. Northeastern are the Wildcats. They're let's see. I think they're in Boston. Yeah, Boston. They're the Huskies. I never liked Northeastern all that much. I think Jim Calhoun coached there before Connecticut, which would maybe I'm just misassociating because they're both Huskies. But I never liked them all that much, so I'm going to put them down in the indifferent. Wouldn't really root for. Okay. So we had those. This is NAU. I'm assuming Northern Arizona University. It's tough because they're the Lumberjacks, and I don't really see anything that's Lumberjack-ish with their logo, but I'm going to assume that's them. They're in the Big Sky. It's Flagstaff, Arizona. Northern Arizona, I don't really care about, don't really pay attention to, and don't know that I'd really root for them. It's Arizona school, so it's pretty far away. Northern Colorado, the Bears. Looks like a bear. Greeley, Colorado, Big Sky. Northern Arizona is also in the Big Sky. I'm going to do the same thing with Northern Colorado. I just don't really care about them. NIU Huskies. So NIU's in the MAC. DeKalb, Illinois. Football team's a little bit more famous for making big upsets. Beat Notre Dame last year, who somehow got in the tournament and made the finals in football despite losing to them. But Northern Illinois is a MAC school. I don't really root for them, though. I don't pay attention to them. I don't root for them compared to like the Kent States that I had above. Okay, fun one here. Northern Iowa, MVC, also a school versus Evansville that against Evansville I'd root against. But they've had some fun teams. They've made the tournament quite a bit. They had one team that blew like an 11-point lead in like 10 seconds in the tournament. If you haven't seen it, go look it up because it was crazy. I don't know how they did that, but they did it. And that team was actually pretty good. And I rooted for that team. More of a team like in their conference that I'd like still give some respect to. So I would put them in the more likely to root for. NKU, the Norse, newer team in Kentucky, or at least in Division One. They are in Highland Heights, Kentucky, closer up to Cincinnati. But I like the Norse. They had a good name. They got a good team. They made the tournament, I think, one year or close at least, and fun to watch. So I'd say I'd root for them. And they usually root for us. Okay, North Florida Ospreys. I went to a North Florida game once. They played Louisville once. I was at that game. They're pretty good. They weren't bad. I enjoy the way they played, and I think they have just kind of a style about them. And I did like their logo and their name, so I'm going to just put them in the like more. I don't know too much about them though, other than that. North Texas or the Mean Green, famous name. AAC, Denton, Texas. I don't know. There's like one player I feel like I know on North Texas, but I think all that I'm thinking of is they've played in that like alumni tournament I mentioned that's in the summer because they have like a Mean Green team or whatever. And there was like one player who was very good on that team that I seem to remember from college, but not a whole lot. So I'll just say that indifferent I would probably root for as well. Okay. And I didn't say before, North Florida's in Jacksonville. We had Jacksonville earlier. That's also there. Northwestern. A lot of ineptitude at Northwestern Wildcats in the Big Ten. Downtrodden for many a year. I don't think they made the tournament until a couple of years ago. They had Collins as their coach. I think it was the Krzyzewski disciple at Duke. I always kind of felt bad for him. I don't know that I really rooted for him. I'll put him in the more likely to root for just because it's like compared to some of the other Big Ten teams, I'd rather them win. So I'll put him up there. We'll see if they stay. Whoa, we got a flaming something here. This could be Northwestern State. Yes. And good luck pronouncing this, Louisiana. Natchitoches, Louisiana. They're the Demons. I would have thought with a generic dumb name like Northwestern State that they'd be lame, but I'll give them a little bit more credit and move them up because you at least go with the Demons and you embrace it. You go with the Pitchfork, you go with the Flames. It's pretty cool. Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I mentioned this before. There's always some Notre Dame fans like sprinkled in, whether here or elsewhere. In Indiana for sure, and then as the farther north you go, there's a lot of Notre Dame fans. And they can be kind of coexisting with Indiana fans and stuff like that are the same. They root for both of them. Notre Dame in basketball's been a pain in the butt for Louisville. Like they struggle to go up there and play. They've had some annoying players like Ben Hansbrough. I should have mentioned Tyler Hansbrough on the North Carolina front because he was pretty important for a while. Annoying and probably one of the teams I didn't like in North Carolina, but other than that. So anyway, Notre Dame has had just some Luke Herringody. Tyler Zeller, I think, played up there, and I saw him play in high school. He played at Washington. His brothers did. Cody played at Indiana. No, Tyler played at. I'm going to get them all mixed up. So Cody played at Indiana. Tyler played at North Carolina, and maybe Luke, Zeller, Tyler, and Cody. I think those were the three. So anyway, it was like Notre Dame, North Carolina, and Indiana. That was probably the only time I was like, oh, I kind of hope he does good. I think he was up there. But other than that, I don't know that there's a team that I really cared about. They had one player who really got on my nerves more recently, and I can't remember his name either. The 3-point shooter. I think he was the dude who ended up with the Bucks. That comes off the bench. His name will come to my mind randomly as well at some point. But yeah, Notre Dame I never really liked. I don't hate them as much as I might like in football. But it's a team I'd probably usually root against unless they were playing one of the teams below them. I was trying to talk myself into like, was there a team I enjoyed them on? But I don't think so. Okay. Pat Connaughton. That's who I was thinking of. I think he played at Notre Dame. Oakland. Golden Grizzlies. I always kind of liked Oakland, to be honest. I like their coach. He's been there forever. He's made a couple tournaments. And then last year they broke through and beat Kentucky with the dude who hit 53s, and he hit everything. Fun to watch. They lost to NC State. Two teams fun to watch. But I would usually root for Oakland. I like their coach. Maybe that changes once he leaves, but he was always fun for me to watch. All right, Ohio, the Bobcats. I don't really care about Ohio. I don't pay attention to them, and I really don't root for them. They might be kind of totally in between these two, so I'll just start them down here and see where they go. But I feel like they maybe had one team that did pretty well that I somewhat liked, but other than that, I don't really pay attention to them. All right, we'll finish the O's here and then be done with this one. I think we got a few more. Looks like maybe 6. Ohio State. Ohio State, the first teams I really remember there, Michael Redd, I think was the first one. Trying to think if there was like Jimmy Jackson maybe played there. A little before my time, but I vaguely remember Ohio State just from the Big Ten and playing Indiana and things. So the Buckeyes I never really cared for or liked, and then later they got the Jared Sullingers and have had some pretty decent players. Keita Bates-Diop, I think, played there for a bit. But yeah, I never really liked them. They had Thad Matta as a coach more recently. He kind of gets on my nerves. Ohio State's usually a team I'd root against. Oklahoma Sooners. Big 12 team back in the day. They're SEC now. And I know I kind of do this sometimes and not always. So missed a few. Oakland's in Rochester, Michigan. Ohio, Athens, Ohio State, Columbus, Ohio. Oklahoma's Norman. Big 10 team was Ohio State. They are the Buckeyes, Ohio Bobcats. I think I might have said that. Oakland Golden Grizzlies, and then Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So that's the recap of those. All right, so Oklahoma is in the SEC. Like I said, they're probably a bit of a bottom feeder right now. They got Porter Moser as their coach, who was at Loyola, Maryland. Blake Griffin is the one I remember there. I feel like Louisville took him out in the tournament. But he was fun to watch in college for sure. They've had some players over the years, but I never remember exactly who they are. Like you'll just randomly see a guy in the NBA where it's like, oh yeah, he went to Oklahoma. These days you don't know because they've been to 5 schools, but before then it's like, oh yeah, he played a couple of years there. But yeah, I don't remember too much about Oklahoma. I don't really like actively root for or against them too much, but I'd say I'd be more likely to root against them. Maybe especially now that they're in the SEC, but start there. Oklahoma State. Was Tim Hardaway there? There's like a guard I know that ended up being good that started at Oklahoma State, and I don't remember if it was him or Gary Payton, one of them, something like that. But before I remember really Oklahoma State too much. But Oklahoma State, they're in Stillwater, Oklahoma, Big 12, so they split with Oklahoma. That's the team I'd probably more likely root for. I've had some teams I've watched like where I did like them. Cade Cunningham, I think, was there more recently, who was pretty good and fun to watch. Like I enjoyed watching him. All right, Old Dominion. Old Dominion always has a weird logo to me. The Monarchs in the Sun Belt, Norfolk, Virginia. So they're using the lion and then the hat, the crown. I think I do like Old Dominion sometimes. I'll watch them in like the Sun Belt Conference in the conference tournament, and I'd probably root for them more than some of the others. Okay, good news, because the next one on the list says Omaha, and we did Omaha up there, so I think we're good. So this would be Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts, Golden Eagles, they had a good run in the tournament not all that long ago. They're in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the Summit. I like Oral Roberts. I liked their team then. They had a good player who transferred to Texas, and he wasn't as great then, the little guy. But I probably have them in the like more. They're not somebody I like actively root for, but they were fun to watch. And then I think we have two more O's, and we'll be done for this video. One is Oregon. The other is Oregon State. They have switched conferences. One is in the Big Ten. The other is in the West Coast Conference, or will be the new iteration of the West Coast Conference. So Oregon Ducks being in the Big Ten is the dumbest thing in the world, but there they are. They've had some decent teams over the years. They had that coach, and I'm not going to remember his name, but he was at like, oh man, where was he before? Was it Creighton, somewhere like that? But he was good, and he's been decent there. They've had some good players. Dylan Brooks, I know, was there for a while before he went crazy and went pro at the same time. And then feels like they have one other really good player that I can't think of in the last like 15 years or so. But anyway, Oregon's a team I'd actually kind of not mind. Louisville beat them on the way to the 2013 title pretty easily, I think. But I'd more likely root for Oregon than not. And then Oregon State, I usually don't. I kind of root against them, at least in basketball, compared to the two. Now that Oregon's in the Big Ten, maybe that changes over time. But that's fine for now. Okay, well, that gets us down to the P's. I don't know that I'll be able to like do all this in rank, so I think it'll probably be two more videos. One is this rest, if I can try to run through it. I talk too much. And then the last one is rank order, which these middle ones I won't like be super hardcore on, but I'll try to be a little cleaner on the ones at the top. So, all right, we'll wrap it up and see you back next time.